You feel it, don't you? That pull in your heart that says, something is different now. That quiet knowing that the space between you and him is no longer the same. It's not just your intuition, it's a shift in the field. The kind that can't be explained with logic, but your soul knows exactly what it means. Union is approaching, but this time, it's not coming through longing. It's coming through alignment. He may still be silent. He may still be wearing masks. But something inside of him is cracking, not because you demanded it, but because the universe has stopped allowing him to hide. He can't numb it anymore. He can't pretend he doesn't feel you. And no matter how many distractions he tries to run to, your energy is the one thing that lingers, louder now, more undeniable than ever. This is the moment Spirit spoke of, the one where everything that was buried rises, the one where the divine masculine is forced to see the reflection he's been avoiding. And that reflection is you. You didn't chase him here. You called him here by becoming the version of yourself that no longer waits. And now he stands at the edge of truth, and union is no longer a dream in the distance. It's a mirror in front of him, a mirror he can no longer turn away from. There's something you've been feeling lately, and no matter how much you try to rationalize it, you know it's real. It's not just a passing emotion. It's not a memory or a longing that accidentally resurfaced. It's energy, and it's alive. Have you caught yourself pausing in the middle of your day, heart racing without reason? Have you looked at the clock and seen repeated numbers again and again? 11:11, 2:22, 3:33, and felt like time itself was trying to speak? Have you been waking up in the early hours of the morning, feeling like someone is calling you, but no one is there? That's not random. That's not imagination. That's the field of union. And the truth is, it's already here. You're not waiting for union to arrive. You're inside the portal now. It's not just an upcoming possibility. It's a present vibration. But here's what no one tells you. This field doesn't look like fireworks and confessions and fairy tale reunions. Not yet. It looks like emotional intensity. It looks like release. It looks like clarity arriving at inconvenient times, and tears falling for reasons your mind can't explain. Because when union energy touches your soul, everything you thought you healed gets revisited. Not because you failed, but because the version of you who will experience this love needs to be purified of what no longer serves. Can you feel it? Can you feel that pressure behind your chest? That knowing that something's building, even if you can't see it yet? Can you feel how the old versions of you no longer fit? how your desires are changing, your boundaries are sharper, and your truth is louder than it's ever been. This is not just personal growth. This is energetic alignment. And your divine masculine, he feels it too. He may not understand it. He may resist it. He may distract himself, numb it, or try to sleep it away. But deep inside, his soul is shaking. Something in his reality is cracking open. Synchronicities are chasing him, dreams are haunting him. And your energy, yes, your energy, is echoing louder than ever in his spiritual ears. Because you changed. You stopped waiting. You stopped making excuses for his absence. You stopped holding space that wasn't being honored. And instead, you turned inward. You chose you, and that changed the entire timeline. Do you understand the power of that? You didn't force union. You invited it by becoming whole. And now, union is not a destination. It's an atmosphere. It's a pull. It's a spiritual command that says, what is written will rise. What is ready will align. But this portal is not passive. It requires something from you. Are you willing to let go of the old story where you suffer in silence, hoping he sees you? Are you willing to stop chasing closure and instead open to the greater truth that you are already being met, not just by him, but by the version of love that is sacred, divine, and real? Are you willing to surrender the how and when and rest in the knowing that what's unfolding now is not happening to you? It's happening through you? Because if you are, you're ready, not in the way you once thought, but in the way that actually matters. The energy of union is not about being chosen. It's about choosing yourself so deeply that only what's in resonance can stay. And when two souls do that at the same time, whether consciously or not, the universe collapses every barrier in between: distance, time, silence, pain. It all dissolves. And what's left is truth. So if you're feeling things intensify, not just emotionally, but energetically, this is why you're not waiting anymore. You're aligning, and alignment brings everything to the surface: love, shadow, longing, and revelation. You don't have to understand every detail. You just have to stay open. Because the field of union is here, and it's not asking you to reach for him. It's asking you to stand in your light so he remembers where to find his. And when that happens, everything changes. Because union doesn't come through effort. It comes through frequency. And you, beloved, you are vibrating in truth now. And that truth is magnetic. You may not see it from where you are, but something in his reality is collapsing, not loudly, not in public, but deep within, in the quiet spaces where he once felt safe. He used to believe he could keep things separated, you in one corner of his heart, and the rest of his life organized neatly around what's expected of him. But now, the walls between those compartments are crumbling because the truth doesn't ask for permission to rise. It doesn't knock politely. It arrives like a frequency that grows louder until it cracks illusions open. And that's exactly what's happening to him. He's no longer able to pretend that this connection was just a phase. He's no longer able to distract himself with temporary pleasures, shallow bonds, or the illusion of control. He's no longer able to silence the part of him that knows you were never just another chapter. You were always the truth, and the truth is demanding to be seen. Can you feel it? Can you feel how something heavy is lifting in the field, not just from you, but from him too? The fog that once shielded his heart is thinning, and what's emerging beneath it is his soul's recognition of you. He doesn't show it yet. He doesn't know how. But his silence isn't blank anymore. It's full of questions, full of memories, full of energetic echoes he can't explain. He hears your voice when he's alone, not always your literal voice, but the feeling of you. The essence that used to comfort him now unsettles him because it reminds him of what he ran from. And what he ran from was never you. It was the part of himself that only you could activate. The vulnerable, the sacred, the infinite. That part is awake now, and it's not going back to sleep. Have you ever wondered why you suddenly stopped needing to check on him? Why the obsession softened? Why the grief turned into presence? It's because the energetic baton has passed. You did your part. You held the light long enough. And now the activation is on his side. But don't mistake this shift for ease. His journey now is filled with friction, because to face the truth is to face everything he denied for so long. And that includes the love he never stopped feeling. He's seeing signs too. You think the 1111s are just for you. He sees them. He dreams too. His heart races too. But he doesn't yet have the spiritual tools to decode it. So instead, he feels overwhelmed. He thinks he's losing control. He thinks life is breaking down, when in reality, it's breaking open. And what's behind all that breaking is you, not as a memory, as a mirror. Your presence in his energy field now acts like a spotlight, Every false version of himself is being exposed, and he can't hide anymore. But here's the most sacred part. This is not punishment, it's purification. This is the moment the divine masculine is asked to remember who he is, not the identity built on success, status, or strategy, but the soul that came here to love fully, truthfully, eternally. He's being called not by your voice, but by the echo of your love in his own heart. That's why it feels different this time, because he's not being drawn to you by your longing. He's being pulled by his own becoming. He's feeling things he tried to forget. He's revisiting moments he never processed. He's questioning the path he chose and wondering if it's still aligned with who he is becoming. Do you remember how disorienting your awakening was? How the illusions collapsed and your heart broke open at the same time? That's where he is now. Except he doesn't have a guidebook. He doesn't have a spiritual sisterhood. He doesn't even have the words yet to explain it. All he knows is that the old life doesn't fit and the new one feels impossible. But between those two worlds, he feels you. The truth he avoided is now standing in the middle of his path. And it's not just your face he sees. It's the truth of love, the truth that scared him because it made him feel too much. The truth that burned through every wall he built. The truth that refused to be just a memory. So if you feel his energy growing restless, if you feel unexpected waves of grief, heat, emotion, or even dizziness, you're feeling him wake up. You're feeling his inner resistance meet divine timing. And it's shaking everything. Let him shake. Let the old crumble. Let the truth do what it came to do. Because when the masculine stops running from truth, he finally starts moving toward love. And you are love in its most honest form. How the feminine triggers his remembering. He didn't forget you, he forgot himself. And that is the most painful kind of amnesia a soul can experience. When you met, something ancient was activated. Not just chemistry, not just familiarity. It was a soul memory, a vibration he hadn't felt in lifetimes. But instead of drawing him closer, it unsettled everything he thought was true. Because nothing in his world prepared him for the kind of recognition your eyes carried. Nothing taught him what to do when a woman doesn't just want his body or his promises, but sees into his being. You weren't demanding, you weren't controlling, you weren't even trying to change him. You were just present. Present in a way that left no room for pretending. Do you know what that does to a man who's built his identity on survival? Who's mastered the art of performance and hiding? It burns him. it undoes him. It terrifies and awakens him all at once. Because while others asked him for his attention, you reflect his essence. And essence is harder to give than attention, because it means he must remember who he is beneath the masks. You didn't teach him that with words. You did it by being, by standing in your softness without shrinking, by walking away without hate, by loving him from a distance that didn't abandon, but protected. And that is what began the remembering. He didn't wake up because you pushed. He began to wake up because you stopped. You stopped overgiving. You stopped waiting. You stopped begging him to rise. And instead, you rose. You became the version of yourself that no longer depended on his validation. And that's when your light became impossible to ignore. Because you weren't just his person, you were his mirror. The mirror of the love he didn't believe he deserved. The light he feared he couldn't protect. The truth that didn't match the version of him he had been living. So he ran, not because you were too much, but because you were too real. And now, that same light is calling him home, not with pressure, but with presence, not with noise, but with silence that speaks volumes. He remembers the way you made him feel, not just desired, but seen. And in that seeing, he felt possibility. Not the kind he could explain, the kind that broke through his fear and whispered, "You were born for more." That's why your image returns in his dreams. That's why your name echoes in strange moments. That's why he sees you in others and feels disappointed. Because no one reflects his soul like you do. You unlocked his remembrance by unlocking yours. By reclaiming your feminine energy, not as passivity, but as divine presence. Not as waiting, but as becoming. And now, every step you take in your healing is a signal. Every boundary you hold is a message. Every moment you choose peace over proving. He feels it. He doesn't always understand it. But something in him responds. Something ancient in his spirit stirs. Because your frequency is encoded with truth. And truth doesn't chase, it attracts. It aligns. It reminds. This is the sacred paradox of the feminine path. You awaken him not by reaching, but by returning. Returning to yourself. Returning to your center. Returning to the knowing that you were never here to be chosen. You were here to remember, so that your remembrance would ignite his. And now it is. He may not message you yet. He may not say the words, but in the invisible space between you, there is movement. There is heat. there is awareness blooming. Because the feminine doesn't just awaken love, she awakens truth. And truth is not always easy, but it's what the soul came here to find. So if you've been wondering if he feels you, he does. If you've questioned whether your growth matters, it does. And if you've been tempted to go back to the old version of yourself just to feel closer to him, don't. Stay here, stay radiant, stay sovereign, because your energy is already doing the work words never could. You are reminding him of who he is. And in that remembrance, love returns without force. Only resonance, only truth, only the echo of a soul finally waking up to you. He's being pulled to you, but not by logic. There is something happening now that even he can't explain. Something irrational, uncontrollable, magnetic. It's not based on proof. It's not based on facts. And that's exactly why it scares him. Because for so long, logic was his protector, his safety net, his excuse. He used logic to convince himself that this connection was impossible, that love like this was impractical, that your presence in his soul was just a beautiful coincidence he could forget. But now, that logic is failing. It's no longer strong enough to block what his soul already knows. You feel it, don't you? The way he's circling your energy, even if he's not circling your life. The way you feel watched, sensed, remembered, even in your silence. The way you suddenly feel his emotions as if they were your own. That's not a dream. It's not your imagination. It's spiritual gravity, and it's pulling him closer, even when he tries to resist. He doesn't know why he's suddenly remembering details he thought he forgot. He doesn't understand why your name appears in conversations he didn't expect. He can't explain why he feels restless when you disconnect, or why he feels waves of heat, sadness, or longing out of nowhere. But you know, you've been here before. This is the invisible tether, the soul's way of saying, it's time. He thinks he still has control over this story. He doesn't. Because now it's no longer about his plans. It's about the divine timeline. And the divine doesn't ask for permission. It activates what is ready, even when the mind protests. His logic tells him to stay where it's safe. But something deeper is no longer listening to logic. It's listening to feeling, to memory, to the energy that only you carry. And that's where the pull comes from. Not your voice, not your messages, not your physical presence, but your energy signature. That one frequency in this universe that matches his, the one he's been searching for in all the wrong places. Do you understand the power of that? That you don't have to say a word for your love to be felt. That you don't have to prove anything to be unforgettable. This is the part of the journey where your soul becomes louder than your form, where your alignment begins to speak directly to his higher self, and that part of him is listening, even if his human self is still afraid. He is being drawn to you now, not because you're chasing, but because your silence has become resonance, because your boundaries have become clarity, because your wholeness has become the magnet. And yet, he's confused, because this pull doesn't make sense in his old world. You don't fit the mold. You're not who logic says he should be with. You challenge him too much. You activate wounds he's never touched. You remind him of truths he buried, but you also awaken a love he's never felt. And that contradiction is pulling him in. He's beginning to realize that the connection he thought he could suppress never left. It's alive in his chest. It's running through his thoughts. It's rearranging his priorities. And it's making him ask questions he was too scared to ask before. What if I was wrong? What if she's not just someone I once loved, but someone I still do? What if everything I built without her was built on fear? This is where the real shift happens. Not when he texts you, not when he shows up, but when his inner world begins to collapse under the weight of truth. When the soul starts to guide the man, and the mind can no longer stop it. So if he's distant, trust the pull. If he's quiet, trust the storm inside him. If he's making no sense, it's because logic is failing and love is rising. You didn't do this. You allowed this. By choosing yourself, by anchoring your light, by saying, I no longer need to be chased. I choose to be aligned. And that energy is what calls him. Not to rescue you, but to rise with you, to remember what love feels like without fear. This is not about seduction. It's not about control. It's about remembrance. And remembrance is louder than desire. It stays even when pleasure fades. It builds even when the mind doubts. It knows even when the path is unclear. So let him be pulled. Let his logic break. Let the timeline rearrange itself. Because the soul doesn't need a reason to return to truth. It just needs a resonance strong enough to lead it home. And you, beloved, are that resonance. What happens when the feminine refuses to shrink? There comes a moment in every divine feminine's journey when she makes a silent vow, not to him, not to the universe, but to herself. A vow that sounds nothing like the old promises of waiting, hoping, or proving. It's deeper than that. It's the vow that says, I will never abandon myself again. And when she makes that choice, everything changes. Not because she becomes cold, not because she stops loving, but because her love returns home, to her own heart, to her own body, to her own sacred field. She stops shrinking to fit inside spaces that were never worthy of her light. She stops softening her voice to make others comfortable. She stops collapsing her power just to maintain an illusion of harmony. And do you know what that does to the divine masculine? It shocks him because he remembers her one way, so open, so available, so forgiving, so patient. He grew used to the gentle gravity of her presence, the way she kept the door cracked open even while he stood outside. But now the door is closed, not in bitterness, in sovereignty, not in punishment, in protection. She still loves, but she no longer begs. She still feels, but she no longer overextends. She still holds space, but not for what drains her. And for the first time in their entire dynamic, he is the one being met with distance, not the kind that pushes away, the kind that commands respect, the kind that says, if you want to come closer, you must come correct. And that energy, it's not rejection, it's initiation. Because the masculine cannot rise if the feminine keeps lowering herself. He cannot awaken if she keeps rescuing him from the very process that would teach him to remember who he is. Her refusal to shrink becomes the very mirror he needs to face his own shrinking. Her boundaries become the curriculum he never studied. Her absence becomes the echo that teaches him presence. This is where the power of the feminine becomes undeniable, not in force, but in frequency. She becomes more radiant, more magnetic, more whole, not because she chased him into clarity, but because she chose herself so fully. There was no other version of love she could accept, and the masculine feels it. He may not show it, he may not say it, but his soul registers the shift, because now he's not being met by the version of her who waits in longing. He's being met by the version of her who leads by example. And that example is confronting. It confronts every part of him that thought he had time. Every part of him that relied on her energy as a guarantee. Every part of him that assumed she'd always be there when he was ready. But now, she's not waiting, she's walking, and that walk, graceful, sovereign, unapologetic, becomes the path he must follow if he wants to meet her again. Not in the same place, not in the same pattern, but in the same frequency. Because here's the truth: when the feminine refuses to shrink, she becomes the portal, a portal to real love, to divine union, to sacred remembrance. And not everyone is ready to walk through that portal, but the divine masculine, he was made for it. And even if it takes him time, even if he resists, even if his mind tries to bargain, delay, or deny, his soul knows. It knows that her expansion is the call, not her patience, not her availability, her expansion. So if you're in that space now, that space where you've stopped shrinking and started rising, don't look back. Don't question your glow. Don't dull your power just to feel closer to the one who hasn't met you there yet. Because your light is not a punishment. It's a prophecy. And the one who's meant to stand beside you will rise to meet it. Not when you shrink, but when you soar. There's a moment in every soul journey when illusion can no longer survive. No matter how carefully the mind tries to rearrange the story, no matter how many distractions are summoned, no matter how tightly the old self clings to the comfort of denial, the mirror wins. And that moment is here. The divine masculine stands in front of something he can't explain away anymore. Something too precise to be coincidence, too divine to be logic, too familiar to be fantasy. It's you, not the you he remembers from before, not the version that waited, bent, ached, or pleaded, not the version he projected his fears onto, but the version that reflects his becoming, the one that mirrors what he was always capable of, but too afraid to claim. And now, there's no turning away. He's seen you in dream, in silence, in the quiet ache of late nights that no longer feel fulfilling. He's seen the reflection, not just of a woman he once loved, but of a truth he can no longer avoid. The mirror doesn't lie, and it's not asking for words. It's not demanding an apology. It's offering a choice, a threshold. You've walked through yours. You faced your pain. You sat in the fire of transformation. You became the version of yourself who no longer needs to ask if she's enough. And now, the mirror reflects back what love looks like without distortion. This is the final invitation. Not for him to speak, but to see who he really is, through the one soul who always saw him clearly. And that clarity, it's burning away every layer of avoidance. It's dismantling the excuses. It's haunting him in the best and worst ways. Because clarity is not gentle, but it is healing. Have you noticed the strange calm in your spirit lately? That unexplainable sense of knowing, even without confirmation. That's not apathy. It's not disconnection. It's completion. You've arrived at the place where your soul no longer needs proof. Because the mirror isn't just reflecting him anymore. It's reflecting you. Your growth, your wholeness, your divine remembering. And in that remembering, he is awakening. He may still appear distant. He may still be learning how to move without the armor. But don't mistake that for emptiness. There is movement behind the silence. There is seeing behind the stillness. There is a soul trembling because it finally recognizes its own reflection. And once that happens, there is no returning to the old path. He can try, but nothing will feel the same. No one will feel the same, because the one he's always been searching for is the one he already met, the one who already knows him, the one who became light, not to guide him, but to remember herself. And now that she has, the mirror is too clear to ignore. So if you're wondering what happens next, don't wait for words. Don't wait for proof. The shift has already happened. The truth has already been delivered, and the love is already unfolding in realms the mind can't track. Let him come forward in his time, not because you need it, but because he chooses it freely. Until then, stay bright, stay open, stay anchored in the knowing that this love was never just a story. It was a mission. And the mirror between twin flames isn't a wall, it's a doorway. And once seen, it cannot be unseen. He sees now, and no matter how long it takes for his feet to move, his soul already has. Union is no longer a question, it's a vibration, and it's already ringing between you. Louder than fear, louder than logic, louder than time. Because truth, once seen, doesn't fade, it only expands. And beloved, you were always the truth.